Welcome to your new look Cigna Healthcare ConnectForHealth webinar and podcast. Each month, we're going to be diving into key insights from specially invited guests and exploring their personal stories behind their health journeys. I'm Scott Armstrong. I'm your host. I'm the founder of mentl, a platform that's dedicated to tackling the stigma of mental health and encouraging workplace well-being. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Maissa Al Khafajy, who is the head of government affairs and strategic communications for Cigna Healthcare. I'm very excited to be here with you today, Maissa.
Oh, thanks, Scott. It's equally a pleasure. I'm super excited. We've got a powerful new format that we've created especially for our Cigna Healthcare community. And the whole premise is we wanted to shine some light on small, consistent actions that can have a significant impact on our health. But before we dive in, I just wanted to share some information on the patient support program. Now, we all understand that the hustle and bustle of our daily lives can overshadow what truly matters, which is our health and well-being. So what we wanted to do at Cigna is to encourage you to make the time for preventative screening as part of any wellness benefit that you may have on your policy, or seek medical advice as soon as any potential symptoms occur, because early detection greatly increases the chances for successful outcome. And the Dubai Health Authority has mandated cancer screening for everyone. So all Middle East and Africa Cigna members can check the Cigna Envoy app or the website for your specific benefits. And don't worry, even if you don't have that benefit as part of the policy, rest assured that any symptoms that prompts a cancer screening will be covered under your regular medical plan.
Brilliant.
Got that out of the way.
So this is streaming exclusively for Cigna Healthcare members today. And later on in this show, we'll be encouraging you to interact with us. We're going to have live polls. We're going to be asking you questions and we're wanting you to vote in those polls. And also later in the show, Maissa will be taking your questions. So if you have questions about your healthcare coverage, please post them in the chat box. It's there for you. Now, if you're watching on YouTube or you're catching up on our podcast channel, you won't be able to interact with any of the polls. You won't be able to vote and you won't be able to put your live questions in. But if you're interested in joining us in real time for our next show, reach out to Cigna Healthcare for membership details. So, right, let's get into this. Today, I am delighted to welcome our guest, Sarah Lindsay. She's a 3-time Olympian and the founder of Raw Fitness. After retiring from elite competition in 2010, she went on to build one of London's most respected personal training brands and recently expanded here to Dubai. She's now helping thousands of people move better, feel stronger, and live pain-free. Sarah, welcome to ConnectForHealth.
Thank you so much for having me. Very honoured.
Well, excited for you to be here, especially on this the first live show that we're doing. I always like to begin at the start, a very good place to begin, I'm told. What first sparked your love of both sport and movement?
I think maybe the question of what could stop me, I think. Hyperactivity as a child meant that I was doing sport before and after school every day. So I was trying lots of different sports from a very young age. So I developed a love for sport and movement very early on. And I think that's, it stuck with me forever. I'm 15 years retired from sport now, but I still partake as much as I can.
Just let the audience know, 3 times Olympian, but what was your specialised sport?
So I was a speed skater, short track speed skating, which is a little niche. So if you don't know, it's in circles on ice, fast racing, to summarise.
I played ice hockey when I was a kid. Running on ice is not easy.
No, not easy, but good fun.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, can you walk us through what, and I don't want to sound very cliche of saying what a typical Olympian day looks like. But my interest is actually looking at the physical aspect, but more so the mental aspect, the headspace that you need to be in to have that level of commitment and dedication.
Well, yeah, and it requires it. you'd get up at 6, you would take your morning heart rate, you would do your urine sample, you'd have your breakfast, go straight into the ice rink and prepare for training. So you'd sharpen your skates, you'd do a team warm up together and a sort of brief of what you're going to do in the training session. Then you're on the ice for maybe 2.5 hours. And then after that session, you have cool down, you see the physio, you do video analysis from the skating that you just did. And then it's like lunch, little rest, then you're going back on and doing the same thing pretty much in the afternoon. So you're training between 6 and 9 hours a day, 2 or 3 sessions a day, every single day. So of course that takes huge commitment and dedication. You can't do anything else. It's full time. It's 100% your job. You can't be distracted. So it's a commitment for a long time as well. Olympic Games are 4-year cycles, and it always feels like you don't have enough time. You think 4 years is ages, but it ticks by really quick. And 4 years of training, you got one race to try and get it right. So it means everything.
How do you keep that going though? Because I mean, like I know me, and I'm a normal human being, or subnormal perhaps. But like I'll get, sometimes I can get into the habit of the gym. I can get into the habit. I've done some triathlons in the past, but after a while, there's just those mornings when you just go, I just can't be bothered.
Oh, it's every morning.
Yeah, but
every
so
morning.
how do you
That's
get
normal.
yourself out? Because I'm sure there's lots of people out there that will be watching or listening to this that will have that in the morning, like how they drag themselves out of bed and put themselves into the gym. How do you, of accelerate through that period of lethargy?
Listen, I don't wake, and I'm a morning person, right? I just get straight up out of bed. But I don't wake up in the morning and think, yes, I'm going to go training. I don't enjoy the feeling, believe it or not, which people find quite strange sometimes. They think that fitness people are going to be these people that really love training.
Spring out of bed.
Yeah.
No, I don't like my muscles hurting. I don't like sweating. I don't like being out of breath. I don't like feeling sick. I'd much rather be at the spa, but I love what it gives me. And when it came to sport, it's all non-negotiable. I was doing anything that I could to get myself to that position to be able to win. And that was all that mattered to me in the world. So I didn't question anything. I didn't listen to, those sort of doubts or the times where you feel lazy or you can't be bothered or anything. If the coach said, for example, you're not allowed to train today because you you forgot to do your morning heart rate, and they will send you home if you don't do those things. And that's the worst punishment, even though I'm tired. And the thought of skating is like, oh gosh, skating again, still taking it away from me was the worst thing you could do. But you also have to remember that no matter what you do, you can't love what you do every day all the time. If your favorite thing in the world is shopping and you go shopping every day, you'll get bored. You don't love it. You don't go, yay, I'm going shopping again. So, you have to decide to, take the good bits out of it, enjoy the things that you really enjoy. And the other stuff is stuff that you just have to do and get on with it.
It's very insightful.
It is. When you're, I'd like to get into this a little later as well, but just when because you're now working with lots of people, you're working with clients, with Raw. What are you saying to them? Like, how are you motivating them to get past that, to get themselves to do what they need to do?
Well, they are motivated. They came in the first place. So they walk. The hardest bit is walking through the door and talking about why you don't feel good, what you want to change and how it's affecting your life. You really need to find out what is people's drive and what is their motivator. But you don't have to be motivated every day. You need a little bit of discipline. And that comes when you work with, if you're at Raw and you're working with a trainer and you've got a team of people looking after you, they can help obviously add some of that motivation and discipline. But like I said, don't expect to be motivated every day because you won't be. Be disciplined, do it anyway, and then it becomes habit.
Yeah.
And then it's just what you do. I exercise most days and I don't train every day, but I do exercise because it's just what I do every day. It's part of my daily routine. And I think that's the biggest thing that people get from it. When people start training and they get into those habits and they train for 3 months, it just becomes normal to them and they'll continue it. You just have to become a habit.
It's interesting because what you've just covered was something that I feel like I'd also wanted to kind of expand on a little bit later on, talking about, experiences with people who have either had a bit of a break, so they haven't had, they've not really done any sports or fitness for a while, or like me, I was a very late bloomer, so I kind of just started that journey. much later on in life. But I feel like I want to, I don't know, do we tackle that now?
Let's do that now. Well, we're in it's a conversation.
And it's because the thing that you touched upon is they walked through that door. They had already made that decision. But then what happens when they, they kind of have a little bit of hesitation, or there's that doubt? I mean, can I just brush on my experience? I couldn't sleep a wink the night before going to my first group class, thinking I'm probably going to be the least athletic, the least, I wouldn't have as much endurance. Everyone probably knows, whatever kind of like tool, like dumbbell, kettlebell, whatever, something bell. But I had so much anxiety. So how do you kind of circumvent that? And how do you make people believe that that's the best decision that you've made, but we've got to stick to it?
It's very, very normal. Everyone has gym anxiety. Yeah. Everybody. So I'm an Olympian. I own gyms. I know what I'm doing in the gym. I can outlift most of the boys. But still, if I go to a new gym, I will go in and I will find my comfort zone. I'll have my headphones on, hat on, and I will just get my session done and I will leave. Yeah. And so I think how hard it must be for people who aren't feeling confident, they don't know what to do. What, you're going to pick up those dumbbells and do what with them? And people are scared of getting hurt and everything. So I understand how difficult that first step is. Yeah. Most people just come in and they sit on the bike for 20 minutes, then they don't know what else to do, so they scuttle back out and leave and nothing changes and they give up. And that's normally what happens, but you just have to find a way around that somehow. You do belong in the gym. Yeah. Everybody started somewhere. And I think people do feel that intimidation. You think that you go in and everyone's going to be an expert and you're going to be the only one that doesn't know what they're doing. But then the more you learn about it, and so the people that come to us, they feel like that too, right? And then after 12 weeks or 8 weeks, however long they decide to train, when they leave, they go into the gym and they look around and they realize, oh no, everyone's doing it wrong. Right. You become the expert. Nobody knows what they're doing. Everyone's making it up and winging it. And if they are an expert, if they're a genuine expert, they would never look at you in a negative way. Yeah. Ultimately, you're sharing their passion. They do that because they love it. Yeah. So you're now adopting that same passion as they are. And they were new once too. So nobody cares. Everyone's just worrying about themselves and doing their own thing. So it's easier to say, but sometimes you just have to bite the bullet, swallow down, just get in and just get started.
Oh, great.
Staying a bit personal. No, I mean, if you look back, from both your Olympian career and subsequently what you've been doing there, what would you say movement has given you or changed you throughout your life?
I think it gives me a lot of confidence. So it's an area, I think you only have to be confident in one thing. You need to be good at one thing in life, and that confidence can cross over into other areas of your life. And I think my physical capability has always helped me in that way. I know that I can physically do anything. I've always felt like that from a very young age. I think, well, I can do it. And if I can't do it, no one can. So just try. Yeah. I've never thought, oh no, what if I can't do it? Like, I will just try and do it. And I think, like I said, I see that with clients. People come in and when you get physically strong, so when you're physically capable and you know that you can do anything or at least try anything, of course it crosses over into other areas of your life. So I think physical strength has carried me a very long way. And it affects things like posture, even just the way, and I see this with clients, the way you hold yourself, the way you communicate, eye contact, and then people start responding to you differently. So then everything starts to change around you and you don't quite know where that's coming from. But really it's because you just deadlifted your body weight,
I love that. Right, guys, you tuning in, we're going to ask you to get involved for the first time and get involved in one of our polls. Now, in a moment, you'll see the questions appear on your screen. Now, as this is a new format, what we'd like you to do is you'll see the questions appear in a little box, the window on the top left of your screen. Now, if you want to maximize that screen, just click the little icon with the 4 arrows. That will maximize the screen and make it a little easier for you to see the questions and the options. And then once you've voted, please click the escape button and you'll come back to the main feed and see us again. So hopefully that's clear. Click maximize, answer the question, and then click escape and you'll be back. Now, remember, if you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast, you won't be able to get involved in this vote. So if you do want to join us in real time, again, reach out to Cigna Healthcare for details of membership. So our first poll is, what is your biggest challenge staying flexible and mobile? Is it A, a lack of time? Is it B, working at a desk? Sounds familiar. C, unsure of where to start, kind of like leaning into what we were just talking about. D, chronic stiffness or pain. Or E, motivation, which is again something we were talking about earlier. I can see that some of you are already submitting. So before we announce the results, I'm going to give you a little bit of time. Maissa, I'm going to ask you that question. What would your answer be to that? What's your biggest challenge when it comes to staying flexible and mobile?
Do you know, I think once upon a time I would blame it on lack of time, but then I've also had a few shifts and changes in my life where I think, no, I have to carve that time, because what is that saying about how I value myself by not giving myself the time? I think for me, it's really the motivation. But then I also feel that motivation is not the only driver anymore, because you touched upon that. To wake up every day and feel, yeah, I'm completely motivated to go to the gym or to go for that walk or run or whatever, it's not always going to be motivation.
You have to make it a priority.
Yeah.
You know, it's important. You are important. You deserve to feel good. And if there's something that you know that you can do to help look after yourself, you deserve it.
Yeah.
You know, being healthy and fit is the ultimate in self-care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Work with clients on that. I mean, because I know, like, I started my platform sort of 3 years ago, and as a new entrepreneur, all of a sudden you've got a million demands on your time. And I recognized that I was not building in any time at all for movement. How do you get people to kind of think about movement or exercise or self-care as a non-negotiable in their day?
Well, it is a non-negotiable. It has to be a part of your day, and you have to, so it comes down to lifestyle first. And you have to look at where's the most likely time and place for you to be able to do it. And then you have to just make it a priority. That's all it comes down to, is priority, ultimately. So, and like I just said, you have to value yourself. And I think especially, I mean, as women and looking after family, especially and things like that, then you know, you're not the most important person in your own life, but you're no good to anybody else if you're
That's
grumpy
so true.
or, you know, tired or stiff or uncomfortable, or you don't want to do things because it seems physically daunting.
Yeah.
It seems like, I mean, I know this is something I've learned over the last couple of years, and it's definitely work in progress, but you always feel obligated to show up for everybody else, you know. And if I look at my Outlook calendar, you know, there is meeting after meeting after meeting with client or business contact. But where is the Outlook calendar bit for me to show up for myself? So
Book it in.
Yeah. But going back to valuing yourself, you know, how easy is it for people to value themselves? I think it's a really interesting question.
It is. It's a really interesting one. And I feel that sometimes it goes back to maybe, I don't know, conditioning, when there's that element of guilt.
It feels self-indulgent for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
But self-care is not selfish.
No, not one bit.
I can't claim I came up with that. Well, let's see what the audience felt as well. Hopefully you can see the results for those tuning in as well. So top one, working at a desk. And I've seen lots of research around actually how just being stuck at a desk all day can be really, really bad for you. And then lack of time is the second main one. And then motivation. So our top three, working at a desk, lack of time, and then motivation, which I think gels with what we've been talking about this morning. I'm going to circle back to one of the questions I wanted to ask you, just to try and go from Olympic career to kind of present day and the work you do these days. What are the things that you took from your Olympic career and your Olympic training regime that have stood you in good stead in terms of injury prevention, exercising on a daily basis. What are the key elements that you've took from that career and that training that you still employ today?
I mean, I had very, very lucky that I was surrounded by some incredible people, coaches, physios, nutritionists, sports science teams. So we had a very practical education with regards to what's really happening in the body. And I think the more you know and the more you understand about your body and the choices you're making, how it's impacting you, I think you're much more likely to make better decisions when they're more informed. Yeah. So I think that was, it's such a privilege, the people that I've had access to and the things that I've learned over the years, which is, it means that I get to share that and pass that information on from a very practical perspective because I've tried everything. So, I think I can at least speak from experience.
I wanted to kind of jump in and talk about something that, again, it's experience. It's something that I've, kind of like felt that I've endured for a bit. And that was when I really started taking the time, going to the gym, joining some classes. But I must admit, and I know that it's something that's quite trendy now, the flexibility element. So a lot of people are going to Pilates. A lot of people are going to, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right, Lagre.
I actually don't know what you're talking about.
But that's the thing, that whole differentiator between being mobile and then being flexible. And I just wanted to ask what the difference is. And also, how would you be able to split looking at a 6-day week? How many days would you be stretching out, doing things that actually increases and enhances your flexibility versus whether it's, resistance training or strength training, and anything else that you're pretty much invested in when it is like your own time at the gym?
Sure.
Yeah.
So when it comes to fitness trends, and there's more classes now around stretch, which I would never. Any exercise is good, in that time for yourself. When you stretch, you release endorphins. It is super calming, and it definitely clears your head. And it's time off of technology and your phone and people bothering you and everything. So in that respect, I think it's really, really useful. When you're talking about the physiology of it. Flexibility is the ability to stretch the tissue, so the muscle, ligaments, and tendons.
Right.
Mobility is the range of motion around the joint, and then active mobility, being able to control that range of movement, which basically means you need to have enough strength to control whatever that range is. Okay. So that's a very important element to bring into it. To actually lengthen the tissue, to lengthen a muscle long term, it's almost impossible. Wow. It's so hard. So you can do it temporarily, but that doesn't stay like that, right? Okay. So, people use these expressions. They'll say, I want long, lean muscles. You can't change the length of a muscle. That's just dependent on the length of the bone that it's on.
That's really interesting.
So that you can't do. Yeah. And it's just this idea, you just picture, an image of a Victoria's Secret model or something. And say, I want those muscles, but that's not how it works, unfortunately. Right. Yeah. So, both things can be important for different reasons. I would say that mobility is far more important because it's going to help you in your everyday life and everyday movements, and being able to do the things that you need to do every day. Whereas stretching, like I said, it has a place, and it can be a very useful tool, especially mentally. But to actually lengthen a muscle is especially as you get older. So maybe as a child, and you can maintain that, but as you get older, and sometimes you can make it worse. I'm sure that's not what anyone wants to hear, but actually the more you stretch your muscle, if you hold those stretches for a long period of time, which is the idea to try and lengthen, you create little tears in the muscle, which can be good, you create that damage. But then if it doesn't, it can repair knotted. If it doesn't repair the tissue nice and smooth, then it can actually make you tighter.
So is that where strength comes in, though? Because I'm listening to you talking about controlling the range of movement. So when you're trying to do something, you've actually I'm sorry, if I'm getting this wrong, but does that mean you've got the actual muscle strength to control that range?
Yeah, you want to be able to move through the biggest range possible, and that will obviously help prevent injury as well, because you know, anything can happen. You know, if somebody's super tight in their shoulder, as a kind of silly example, but if someone has very tight shoulders, their external rotation isn't there, and you give someone a high five, you can dislocate your shoulder. And I know that seems very extreme and silly, but I've seen it.
I shall now not be high-fiving Maissa at the end of
but
the
that's just to give some imagery, you know, just to give some imagery on the subject. But you want as much range around the joint as you can, as long as you can control that range. So the more range there is, the stronger you need to be through that full range. So generally, if you're tighter, you can be stronger. So it's a little, you know, you have to find the balance of this. Yeah. You want to be mobile enough so you're not getting injured. You want to be strong enough so you can prevent that injury too. So yeah, it's just trying to find, what does your body do? Yeah. If there are problems, if there are sticking points or lack of mobility, you definitely need to work on it to prevent future problems, even if you seem fine now.
Can I ask a selfish question?
Go on.
For it.
Being the 52-year-old around the table, I'm increasingly like, you know, and I have been focusing on strength work because I'm obviously reading the trendy stuff that's telling me that actually this is really important. Is that actually true? Are there things as we get older? You know, I look at the research coming out of the UK, which says, like, you know, a big percentage of the hospitalization of people over 60 and over 70 is often trips and falls, and that's kind of linked to, again, that lack of muscle strength. So as a 52-year-old looking at I'm going to say the second third of my life, because I've told my daughter I'm going to live to 150. What do I need to be doing to make sure that I'm, you know, kind of like with this whole longevity thing that we're talking about, I want to be mobile for my daughter. You know, I want to keep giving her the ups and walking up the stairs and downstairs with her as she gets older. Maybe not until when she's 18, but, you know, at least for a few more years.
Well, the benefits of strength, there's, you know, strength and muscle mass, and the benefits of those two things. I mean, it's one of the biggest indicators of longevity is muscle mass. You know, when you're talking about falls, for example, if you do trip, so, you know, that can happen to anybody. Just because you have muscle doesn't mean you're not going to trip over, right? But if you do trip, you're able to potentially save that fall. And it sounds really silly, but, you know, you could just, if you put your foot out, or, you know, you can react to whatever's happening, where if you don't have any and you're weak and maybe your proprioception's not good and stuff, and you hit the floor and you don't have a lot of protection, then you're going to get hurt. Now, we think about that as old age rather than now, and it seems premature to talk about it, but the older you get, the harder it is to gain muscle, and the more muscle we lose naturally. So whatever your age, the more you can do to gain muscle now will see you well in the long run. And even if you don't, weight train forever, if, for example, at 25, you squat 100 kilos, I'm using big numbers here, but if you squat 100 kilos at 25, just the journey to be able to have done that will mean you'll be stronger at 80, even if you never lift again.
Wow.
Because it's also the things you do in your normal life, the sort of perception of what is and isn't difficult. If you've been strong, you think you can do things, so you keep doing them, which means that, you know, you think about retirement and you should be able to travel and do things and, explore life, or when your kids grow up and move out and you've got this freedom, you want to be able to do whatever you want. Yeah. But if you don't have the physical capabilities, it affects confidence so much that people don't make those decisions. And I see that, with clients on sort of both ends, when people lose their physical capabilities, maybe because of sickness or illness, they don't make those decisions to go and do things that they would have done before. So you want to try and flip that as much as you can. That physical strength that means that you're capable forever.
It's almost like you're equating, but physical strength is actually, sorry, I'm hogging the mic as well here, but physical strength is almost mental strength at the same time.
The two cross over a lot. Yeah. Very, very much so.
I think that you couldn't separate the two, because even as you grow older, the idea of having that independence to do things is like slowly withering away, because you're having to rely on others to be there for you, whether it's, to carry heavier things, to help you up the stairs.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it definitely has an effect on your mental well-being.
Yep. It's time to ask you to get involved again.
Second round of
Second
polls.
round. So again, we'll just to remind you again, in a moment, the questions will come onto your screen. Again, just to recap, If you want to maximize the window, just to make it a little bit easier for you to see the questions and choose the choices, then click on the little icon with the 4 arrows, maximize that, and then when you're done, press escape and you'll come back to the main screen and you'll see us again. Hello. A reminder as well, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're tuning in on the podcast, you won't be able to get involved in the interactive vote. So again, if you want to join us in real time for the next session, then please reach out to Cigna Healthcare for details of membership. How often do you specific flexibility or mobility exercises? So how often do you do flexible or mobility exercises? And is it daily? Is it a few times a week? Is it rarely or never, but you want to start? And I can see the votes coming in already, so thank you for getting engaged. I'm going to ask you, how often do you exercise? Is it daily? Is it a few times a week? Where do you come down on training, rest days, all that kind of thing?
Yeah. So it depends what you consider training and exercise. So I exercise every day, and that is for my mental health.
Yeah.
And it's just, it can just be a walk. So every morning I get up and I go for a walk, and it depends on the heat and what time I get up. But if it's early enough, I'll walk a full lap of where I live, which will take me maybe an hour and 10 minutes, or I'll do a half lap, which takes me about 45 minutes. But this is time, and I don't look at my phone, I don't do emails or anything until I've taken those steps, because I think it's just time to clear your head.
Absolutely.
You get some daylight, you breathe, you feel good. I tell myself nice things. I say hello to all the dog walkers. And I think it just means that I'm in a better position to then deal with whatever comes through, the emails after that.
Yeah.
So I exercise every day. I don't train every day. I have a few injuries because of crashes in my sport. It's an inevitable part of speed skating, unfortunately. Yeah. So I have little niggles here and there. So I weight train 2 to 3 times a week. And that's the core. That's the thing that I don't negotiate on. So for me, maintaining my muscle mass and maintaining my strength is the most important thing to me. So that's pretty much all I do. If there's some sport or there's something, going on, or I might go join in a class every now and again just for fun, because I do enjoy doing those things, but just walking and weight training, pretty much.
Weight training.
Yeah.
Maissa, for yourself?
What do I do?
Yeah.
Oh God. I tend to be quite consistent. So I will do weight training 3 times a week. I try to do lower twice, upper, or just just a full body once a week. But I wanted to incorporate that element of the stretching, and that's why I was asking about. I do yoga. I'm not really into Pilates and stuff, but because it's something that's really trending right now, I do want to, the heat's upon us. I do want to keep at it, but I'm finding that I'm making excuses as the days progress. But the walking part, I will also commit to. And I think a lot of it is that mental clarity. I find that is truly the time. And sometimes I'll find myself, if it's not first thing in the morning, in the evenings, I'll just put my AirPods in and just a podcast. But I have not been able to strip myself and do it, without having access to my phone first thing. So hats off. That is something that is incredible, and I feel that I should be able to do.
Yeah, I think it's good for you.
You'll now have a new podcast to listen to while you're doing
that. Right, yeah. What about you?
Well, I'm getting better. I have 2 dogs, so they get me out of the house and I have to walk them.
Yeah.
Particularly the new poodle, who drives me mad. But anyway, and I'm doing F45 at the minute. So I'm doing circuit training 4 to 5 days a week at the minute.
Wow.
Yeah.
I need to start my swimming again. I used to do triathlons, but my knee, I've got a bit of arthritis in my knee, which is, I need to try and figure out how to get over that. And maybe I'll have a conversation with
you. Yeah, maybe you need to strengthen it a little bit.
Yeah.
We've actually had a question come in for one of the audience, which kind of comes back to do around weight training. Anthony, thank you very much for sending your question in. If you are tuning in, send your questions in. Also, if you've got any questions around your healthcare coverage, Maissa is here to perhaps field some of those. Anthony asks, I want to ask, does strength training need to be correlated with lifting heavy, or just a regular amount of fitness is fine? He loves running and cardio, and while he dedicates time to strength training, he dreads having to lift heavy weights. He's 40.
It depends what your goal is. If you want to get stronger, you need progressive overload, which means the weight has to,
you have to
go up. You have to progress your training. So if you are lifting, I don't know, just say you're chest pressing 10 kilo dumbbells and you've been doing that for 3 years, you're probably not really doing anything anymore. So it does need to progress. You don't need to do, all the way down to strength training. You don't need to do 3 to 5 reps. People think that strength and weights is the same thing, and it's not. So there's different areas of your fitness you can train with weights. It really depends on your goals. If you just want to maintain, then maybe you don't need to drop down to those lower reps. But training programs always need to cycle. Like I say, if you do the same thing all the time, you stop adapting.
Okay.
So even if you go into a strength phase, you've plateaued in the rep range that you're doing, for example, and then you move into another phase, you go into a strength phase, maybe you only stay there for, 3 weeks or something. But it means that when you go back to the phase you were doing before, maybe it's a muscle building, maybe hypertrophy or something. When you go back to that, you can probably lift a bit heavier and then you'll get better effects of that style of training. So you don't have to stay in a phase of training long enough to, like I said, if you don't want to gain muscle, you might have to move through a traditional sort of hypertrophy rep range, but you don't need to stay in it long enough to build. But you have to do that to go to the lower reps if you want to do strength training. You can't just jump from 50 reps to 5 because you won't be able to lift enough. So you won't really be stimulating anything. So that was kind of complicated. Sorry, it wasn't like that straightforward. But really, they've shown that if you're trying to gain muscle, you don't need to be in hypertrophy. You don't necessarily need to be in strength. You just need to be close to failure. So you have to, within a couple of reps of failure, the difference in the amount of muscle mass that you can gain isn't that different.
Define close to failure.
So complete failure is when you can no longer lift that weight. So if you're talking about a bicep curls, you couldn't get that weight up under any circumstances. And obviously mental can play a big role in that. But if you feel like you really can't actually lift it and you try, you don't think, oh, well, that's enough now. If you try and the dumbbell won't physically go up, that's failure.
Right.
So, I think you should train close to failure with whatever rep range you're doing. Otherwise, you're just going through the motions.
Okay.
Can I ask a connected question? And because he was talking about he's 40, he's doing cardio, he's running, and likewise, I used to do a lot of cycling, and I've reintroduced cycling. But what is that mix, or what's the blend? Does cardio help strength training, or does strength training help cardio? And should there be a blend of both? So cardio can help your conditioning, and it will help your recovery. For sure. So it definitely has a place there. Depends on what area of your fitness you're trying to work on. So cardio really, people are just talking about heart and lungs, and it depends how you want to challenge that. But when you're talking about longevity, one of the biggest indicators of good longevity is going to be your VO2 max, so the amount of oxygen you can get in and transport around the body. Okay.
So, but again, with that, if you just do the same thing all the time, 5K run, same speed, it's good for ticking over, but you're not going to improve that. So if you're trying to improve, then you might need to mix it up a little bit. But I think a blend of the two is very important. But like I said before, it depends on your goals. It depends what you're trying to achieve. The reason I don't run is because I really want to hold on to my muscle mass.
Okay.
It's so important to me. And you can train with weights. My heart rate goes through the roof. Trust me, if I'm, humping 30 kilo dumbbells down the track, walking, lunging, I can't breathe at the end of that, right? Because the muscle requires oxygen.
That's true.
So the more you challenge the muscle, the more oxygen it requires. Yeah. So, I'm sure my VO2, I haven't tested it for a long time, but I'm sure my VO2 max is good, even though I don't do traditional style cardio.
I'm probably lifting nowhere near as what you're lifting, but I genuinely believe in what you're saying, to the point where there are moments when I do feel like my heart rate's gone up, and it's just through doing rep sets with whatever the weight is. And sometimes even that perspiration that you get, that maybe if I was running on the treadmill for about 20 minutes or so on a speed and incline of X, I would not be getting as much or as fast. So absolutely.
Well, I'm not anti-cardio, right? It just sometimes it does sound like it a little bit because lots of people do cardio. They, it's an easy thing to leave your house and go for a walk or go for a run, and that's not usually the area that people need the help. Most people come to me because everybody knows that they should weight train. Really, you should weight train. You should work on your strength a bit. But a lot of people don't know how still. So that's why people come to me. So when I speak, like I say, I do sound anti-cardio, but I'm not anti any exercise at all. But it's just not usually what people ask me. I don't think you should pay a trainer to watch you on a treadmill and press that button.
No.
You can do that yourself.
I think we're going to actually go into the kind of the Q&A session. We're going to go into early. And again, Maissa's here. If you've got questions about your coverage, please post them. Sarah, you're that fascinating that people are flooding us with different questions. They really want your advice.
Wow. Flattery gets you everywhere.
Now, this question is coming from the audience member I really love, which is, what are people's gym habits that you love or hate the most?
Well, in my gym, everybody does as they're told.
Okay, right.
No, sorry, that sounds terrible. So I think normally, and in a commercial gym, leaving weights out and leaving it, that's everyone's pet peeve, So my gym is immaculate. Everything is exactly where it's supposed to be.
I always
shouldn't be
I put them back.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's
like
cardinal sin.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of annoying when people are doing, like exercising or bicep curls or whatever right in front of the dumbbell racks. You can't get to the dumbbells. Like, step back, step away. So that's something, if I go to a commercial gym, which I don't very often, I've built my own that's one of the reasons.
For one of the reasons,
Yes.
I don't want to wait 6 minutes to get on the equipment if I've got 2 minutes rest and they're sitting there on their phone or something. And so I don't like to share. So I've built these amazing, so, for my own training, half of it. So yeah, those I guess are my peeves. I love seeing people do well. I love that, when you get that really great environment where it's really dynamic, everybody's supporting each other and wanting each other to win. That's something that I put so much into creating in my space, and it's the thing I'm actually, out of everything, the most proud of. It's the team, the feeling on the gym floor, which is really safe and special, but everyone's really going for it. I love to see that, people really challenging themselves.
So if you are listening or watching, put your weights away. I believe you put your weights away. You're immaculate in everything you do, Maissa, I believe you.
I totally get what you say, because the gym that I go to, the commercial gym that I go to, have these ginormous signs everywhere, and yet people still leave them on the mats, on the floor. It's just, I'm
going to ask you a question, one of my pet peeves, before I get into an audience member. I'm being selfish, I'm hogging the mic. Where do you stand on people filming themselves in the gym?
Oh, God. Sorry, that's not me.
So people don't want to be filmed. People don't want to be in the background and to be filmed. And I think if you're going to do that, then, have some etiquette. Ask people, try to position them in other directions so that people aren't in the background. And if people ask you to stop, then stop. It's not fair. You don't own the gym. It's a private space, and you shouldn't put people off coming. If people want to train, then you should try and respect that, and want everybody to come in and not put people off. So I think most people filming themselves are going to be more advanced, so you should know that. But then on the other hand, a lot of people need to film themselves to see their technique, to see if they're doing things right. They might not have a gym buddy to tell them. You can only see yourself straight on. So sometimes that can be really useful feedback as well. Yeah. I think it just gets on people's nerves a bit, doesn't it, when people are posing and they're not really training. And
I think that's, until you said that, I didn't even think of people would be filming themselves to check their form, as opposed to you just posing and you're going to be putting this on Instagram.
Well, there's an athlete, we used to film our squats and things. There'd be cameras set up to make sure that the line of power is correct and that kind of thing. So we had our own gym, but we did film our training. So I do see it from that angle as well. But yeah, just be mindful, I think.
another question that's come in, and I think this is kind of connected, and I'm being really, really selfish. And I'm sorry, but this is kind of connected to what I was talking about.
This is communal.
I love the fact we've got so many questions coming in. Having been a runner for over 30 years and having had condoplasty, I believe it would be, on both knees, what exercises are best to strengthen muscle around the knee, please? Having been a runner for over 30 years and having both knees, what exercise? So I repeated the question, But what are the best things to strengthen again, I have that arthritis in my knee. What are those best exercises?
Well, you have to think of how, when you have an injury or, especially around the joint, you have to think, how does the joint move? What direction? And really, your knee, you're just flexing. You're just flexing and straightening, like bending and straightening the knee. So you have to try and improve the strength of doing that in a controlled way. And you can, rotate the hip and change that angle to potentially, aim different quads. Quads, you've got four muscles there. So if you turn the toe out, then you're working on the inside and in on the outside, for example. But the exercises for that are things like leg extension, like seated leg extension. I'll do that single, do that unilaterally. So instead of using two legs at the same time, then do them one at a time, because if you have an injury or a weakness, you train the other one as hard as you can, and then that one can't keep up. You're training in more of a discrepancy. So always start with the weaker leg. Another one that I really like, if you have access to it, is sled drags. So if you can attach a weight around your waist and walk backwards, so sit down into a squat position and walk toe to heel, walking backwards is great for strengthening the knees, because we had to do a lot of that work because of in speed skating, the position you're sat in at 90 degrees, you can't get away with having weak knees, and people, like I said, they break bones a lot and have to rehab in that way. So, but you can do the same thing with bands as well. You can attach bands to, say, anything stable, any, a chair leg or something like that, and do leg extensions at home. So you don't have to go and do that in the gym, and then just increase the resistance of the band by making it tighter or getting stronger ones.
I just had a question, and that's kind of connected to the one that you were just answering. And where do you stand on the nutritional aspect? So things like, if we're talking about joints, collagen, because there's a lot of talk about the different types of collagen that's out there, how effective it is in helping with joint movement. But then adding on to that, protein. And we're talking about muscle building and, just maintaining that strength. So the nutritional aspects.
I mean, nutrition is a huge subject, right?
I'm sure it will be actually an episode all on its own.
Of course, it's huge. It's a huge subject. There are things, I think, with any nutrition plan, the number one underlying factor should be optimal health. So that should be the first consideration. No matter what your goal, the quality and health of your food is the first thing to think about. You're trying to get in all the essential nutrients that your body needs to function.
Right.
And if you're missing those things, then you can get sick. So, so the quality of the food counts a lot there. Then I think eating for performance is a really nice mental shift, because a lot of people that I speak to, people are just trying not to eat.
Exactly.
They're spending the whole time trying not to eat. I shouldn't eat that. Just trying not to eat and trying to exercise more and more and more. And where does that go? You can't run all day and eat no food.
Exactly.
Right? And the ideal situation, which is another, obviously I'm super pro weight training, but another benefit of having muscle is that your metabolism goes up. Your basal metabolic rate is higher, so you can eat more food without gaining body fat. So the more food and more nutrients you can get in, the healthier you're going to be.
Yeah.
Maissa was also asking there as well, which is interesting, because I also wanted to add a question to that as well, about that whole debate. Because, if I'm on Instagram, I'm being pushed adverts for collagen. Should I take collagen? Should I take creatine? Should we take supplements? Does that obviously come after diet, and where does that take a place? I see loads of adverts for collagen.
I do as well. And
I take lots of supplements. I do take a lot of collagen. I have done for a long time. I actually got put onto collagen quite a few years ago now, maybe 5 years ago, by a friend of mine. And I had alopecia, and I lost a lot of hair.
Wow.
And it was a tough one. It was like 30% back of my head, all my hair fell out. And so she got me onto collagen just to help regrowth and everything, and I've taken it every day since. So
Amazing.
I take collagen in the morning and in the evening. There's so many studies. There's lots of studies saying how brilliant it is and it depends on the bioavailability of the type of collagen that you're taking as well. So the quality does count.
It does.
And there's a few things out there saying that, but I mean, for me, I've enjoyed taking it, and it's it's a protein. It's an incomplete protein, but I don't think there's any harm. So we'll see. The proof's in the pudding. But I feel good taking it, and it's helped with joint pain and that kind of thing. And I think my hair came back well. So
it looks lovely.
So I'll just go with that.
I feel like I have to ask what type of collagen you've been taking, because I've clearly been taking the wrong type.
Oh no.
If I want to, just before, because the time, we've got about 10 minutes left, so I just want to start circling back to some practical advice again as well. One of in that first poll question we asked, I think it was the second one after lack of time. Actually, no, it was the top answer, if I recall. It was being desk bound.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you have any advice or any simple, realistic ways people can stay mobile during the day when there are so many people who are tied to that desk throughout the day?
But if you can't get up from your desk, if you are actually stuck at your desk, then you have to prioritize it outside of your working time. But you have to be able to move. I think a lot comes down to the attitude within the workplace and by whoever the leaders are.
Yeah.
It's really, really important for people long term and for productivity.
Yes.
If you exercise at lunchtime, your productivity goes up after lunch.
Yeah.
That's been proven over and over and over again.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
So I think that comes down to whoever is senior, whoever's making those decisions, to make sure that they're really investing in their team, and what an amazing thing that you can do for them to encourage or enable people to exercise during their working day. It should be part of your job.
Yeah.
Not something that's seen as, you're taking time off, or you should be at your desk.
Yeah.
It should be put in as part of your job.
I remember reading something in a book, which I then implemented in my last management position before I launched this platform, though, which was kind of like banning desk lunch at your desk, and just telling people, leave, you've got an hour off for lunch. But how, because so many of us have a lunch hour.
Guilty.
And we sit there reading emails, still at a desk, eating the sandwich at the desk, rather than go for the walk, even if it's for 10, 15. I think I read Dr. Brendan Stubbs, who I've worked with a few times, he was saying ASICS did a big piece of research that said, I think it's something like 8 minutes and 8 seconds of exercise is enough to have a meaningful impact on your mental health.
Wow.
So
I'm sure.
I mean, if you think about it, it's even trying to remove yourself, from an environment that is highly stressful. So how can you even be having your lunch in a state of, there's anxiety, you've got to kind of jump into another meeting, and what that's even doing to your digestion.
Well,
so,
food is one of life's greatest pleasures. You should enjoy
It should
your
be
food,
savoured.
not do your emails at the same time. But I think people underestimate how much just your general daily activity can impact your body composition, for example. So it's not just, that hour that you spend in the gym or 45 minutes you spend in the gym will have, a certain amount of impact on your body composition and body fat, but not that much. It's all the other things you do in the rest of the day. So the more you can move, and I really do feel for people that are stuck at their desk, but if you're able to get up, just set timers, just, make a little routine or a game out of it somehow of, every hour, just make sure you get up and move around, because you also end up with, and we're talking about flexibility and mobility, but you end up with adaptive shortening. If you're sat in this position with shortened hips for hours and hours on end, you become so tight and your quads become so tight, and that has a knock-on effect in the balance of your posterior and frontal strength. So it's it's important. You've got to get up and move around.
Explain that again.
I find that
adaptive.
happens.
What we're getting
shortening.
Yeah.
So if you sit in a shortened, any muscle in a shortened position over hours, it will tighten.
Wow.
You can feel it. Yeah. So because I drive distances, I will, and I don't know, but if I've driven from like Abu Dhabi to Dubai and back again, I will actually do squats, because I just feel that my entire area just feels stiffened, my lower, and I just feel like it needs to be kind of like stretched out. It needs to be moved. I can't just not do anything, having been in that sitting position for an average of about, I'd say about 3 hours back and forth.
Well, an obvious one that you see in people's posture is when people are sat at a desk and they're hunched forwards, and everybody always says it's like, oh, I've got this computer posture and my shoulders are rounded. And some of that is because the muscles in their back have lengthened from being sat like that for so long. And the muscles, the chest has tightened. So then you can't pull your shoulders back. So then everybody will do this. They'll say, you know, you're like trying to improve your posture, and they just pull it. That's not good posture either. You know, you have to try and lift like from the sternum and stand up straight again. But you can get this adaptive shortening of the pecs, which is bringing the shoulder forwards. So then you have to really to correct that. Like I said earlier, lengthening the muscle is hard because you've sat like that for 9 hours. I mean, how are you supposed to fix that? So then strengthening the muscles that retract to the shoulders will help bring that back again.
So is that like chest openers? Is that
strengthening your back. So anything that pulls the shoulders back. So rowing, ultimately, pulling movements will help to strengthen that.
So
and then you have to stretch out the chest. You know, get a cricket ball or, you know, in there as well.
Right. See, these are the kind of Olympian insights you only get at Connect for Health. So thank you for joining us. I'm hoping you're enjoying it. Maissa, we're about 4 minutes out, I think, 5 minutes out. There's a couple more questions come in, but anything that you want to cover with Sarah? Because I've hogged the mic a lot. So.
Oh, no. I mean, to be honest, I've just been going with the flow.
It's been amazing, actually,
it really has. And it's interesting because you know, for the most part, I don't have an Olympian lifestyle, but there are that like anecdotes, those moments where I feel, do you know what? Yes, absolutely. I sometimes, you know, kind of experience that. For me, what I feel is really important is the takeaways. So if you're actually speaking to an audience, and I don't want to single out and just say to females, but, you know, whether they're kind of like full-time career women, balancing, whether they've got kids, even if they don't have kids, but really trying to get to that kind of that point in their lives where, especially when they're going, what I feel is a very sensitive time. So in your 40s onwards, your body changes. You're not able to, I would say, you know, kind of lift the same amount or even go for longer, you know, lengths, whether it's kind of runs or how do you feel that you could, or what would you advise when you still want to maintain that level of, you know, that balance, but without kind of like pushing yourself to the point of strain and injury as a woman going through a certain stage, whether you're perimenopausal, what would you give? What advice would you give?
It's the same for men and women. Recovery after about 30 years old slows down quite dramatically. And we've seen that the Olympic Association has all this data for that. So athletes over that age need more rest time. They need more recovery, not just in sessions, but in general, you know, during the week and everything. So, you know, we decline at the end of the day. So you have to listen to your body. You have to, I think, prioritize the rest and recovery. And that's not just doing nothing. It might be more stretching. It might be yoga. It might be going for a walk and doing mobilizing. It's thinking about your food, making sure that you're really focusing on your post-workout nutrition and your sleep. More than anything, your sleep. People, it's like the last thing that people think about, but it should be the first. Nothing's going to change if you're tired. You know, that's when all the change happens. That's when you're releasing your growth hormone, and all the adaptations happen when you're resting. So you need to try. I know it's easier said when people suffer with sleep. It can be an absolute nightmare, but it's something that you have to try your best to address. Get off the phone. Don't scroll before you go to bed. Get rid of that blue light. You know, even if you want to wear blocking glasses, blocking glasses. And it can sound a bit indulgent, but try and find yourself a routine to slowly calm yourself down before you go to sleep, whatever that might be, because it's really important that you get good quality sleep.
Yeah, that's so good.
And I'm afraid that we are out of time. This has been an incredible conversation. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as we have. Remember, this is Connect for Health is exclusively for Cigna Healthcare members if you want to join in the real environment. So join us real time for our next one. Next month, we'll be back again. But for now, I'd like to say thank you, Sarah Lindsay, for joining us on Connect for Health. Maissa, great to be with you.
Thank
First
you,
session as a
Scott.
co-host, and to you as the audience for joining us today. And with that, I believe we are out, and it's time to end our time with you. Thank you for joining us.